Question 1. In what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of existing film opening title sequences? Well, to answer that question, I'm going to do a bit of frame analysis here. 9 frames, a bit of analysis on all of them. Straight away you can notice that it conforms to stereotypical teen dramas, or most movies actually, where the production company comes first, or one of the first titles to come up, and the film title is usually always at the end, the director's name there. So we have used inspirations from movies like The Bling Ring, which uses that quite effectively, or uses that, how effectively. It's just a title, a standard procedure. Um, so we've definitely stuck to that from most movies. We've also used aspects of the mise-en-scene in our opening sequence to perpetuate conventions. So we've developed some of the stereotypical uh, notions about our characters and the age profile of our characters. So, for example, the mise-en-scene in this shot here shows a character rolling up a cigarette, and in the background it's a medium close-up here. So the use of camera and the mise-en-scene in tandem is quite effective here, because it's a character rolling up a cigarette, and in the background you can see the other props, the alcohol and the mess, etc. And it's quite dark, so the lighting in it is quite dark throughout our opening sequence. The lighting is quite dark, which in actual fact challenges most conventional teen dramas, where the party scene is usually quite light. For example, this party scene from Skins, it's also a house party, but it's much better lit than any of uh, the scenes in our one. Ours is not very well lit; it's quite dull, and it does look like an actual house as opposed to this. It's not. Though it's a house party, the male scene don't really represent that. There's far more people in the Skins one, so we do challenge the conventions of teen dramas. It's topless. We've kept the costume strictly clothed. Uh, we do challenge the convention, and that's because we wanted it to be a bit more of a realistic party. We found that these ones in Skins and things, firstly, we don't have the budget to stage a party like this, and secondly, we challenged the convention because we don't feel that most parties were like this at all. Um, so we felt that we should challenge the conventions and portray them as a bit more dull and a bit more sinister, and represent the kids as uh, a bit more not to be sided with a bit. The perspective of the audience shouldn't necessarily be one that they uh, look to empathize with these characters, but rather look down on them in our opening sequence. But if we look back over here at our opening sequence, I think we do use a lot of things that are present in lots of teen dramas. So the uh, costumes, okay, maybe it was a bit different in Skins, but generally the use of costume is the same. You can see they're quite uh, tight clothing, quite open. The use of shots and the type of characters, that's one thing that you could say. The type of characters, they do seem at the same age. Their appearance is very similar. The facial expressions, another aspect of the mise-en-scene over here. It doesn't. It does seem quite drugged out, happy, jolly, you might say. But the challenging representation of that convention is that we don't. It doesn't seem anything. It doesn't seem positive. It doesn't seem like a positive representation. I don't think we attempted to make this character look like someone you wanted to be. And the lighting shows this as well. Look, the dull lighting, as I've just mentioned, now one it's very, very dull. Compare that to the house party in Skins, and there's a big difference. Also, the house, the point about the setting and location, the house party does develop on the convention shown in Skins, the convention and form of teen dramas where the party always held in the house. Another aspect of the mise scene. We've used that, but we've developed it in the sense that this is quite a normal house, you'd say. It's not one of those um, extraordinary houses that that are massive and have lots of room that you see in Skins. This is for us to challenge the stereotype or challenge the conventional way of making the teenagers empathized with and the partying seem really cool. We've gone the other way and we've tried to make it look a bit tacky, a bit cheap, and not something that people will sympathize with, and that's because of our target audience. Our target audience is are teenage girls that wouldn't really go out doing this sort of thing, doing drugs and going to drinking heavily and having sex, etc., etc. Um, in terms of our editing, we have used the conventions and forms of teen dramas because things associated with teenagers are quick, high-speed parties, and I think our editing helped that because of the fast cuts that we used. We used lots of different shots, and it was almost like a shot every 2 or 3 seconds. That's what we almost did. But there was a quick change in shots. We never really stuck to one for a long time, especially after she got in. We did use some interesting shots like the over-the-shoulder shot of her hair to establish the character. It's her point of view. We established that she's the character that we'll be seeing things through, or empathizing with at least, especially as she was the main one in dialogue in the car. Um, and this is her point of view of her hair as well in this shot. The other thing that we did also use through editing to help establish character was the difference in the varying of the shots from inside the car to when she got inside. So it was quite continual when from inside the car to her stepping out to entering the house. That was continuity editing, but as she gets inside, there's lots of fast transition. That's to represent the fluctuating nature and the fun-loving nature convention that is developed of teenagers, the stereotypes associated with teenagers. Other things that we did was the use of the sound in our opening sequence, which was quite important for us in terms of representation, because we had the diegetic sound from the opening bit in the car. The diegetic sound showing that we're hearing the dialogue establishing the character of the two girls that we would be focusing on. Just bitching about someone that established that they were teenagers, the way they were talking established they were teenagers, their accent established, the way they were talking established that they might not be the smartest people, and the way they were dressed afterwards before the non-diegetic soundtrack came in, you could see that the way they were walking, they had high heels on, they were dressed promiscuously. You could tell that these were the typical, we made them look like the stereotypical teenage girls that are presented in teen roles, so we stuck to that convention and form. Well, we used it and we almost perpetuated it, that stereotype of teenage girls being quite promiscuous. Then, as she entered the house, we didn't want to use the diegetic music. We wanted to use non-diegetic music in our opening sequence to present to represent teenagers in a stereotypical light, because of the suggestive lyrics. So the song had "Don't Tell Me Our Youth Is Running Out," and we wanted that to match what was being shown in the shots. And the lyrics are obviously quite suggestive, and they represent the fact that teenagers don't really that they don't really care about uh, rules and society, etc. And that was something that we picked up from that we wanted to give that sense of anarchy through our soundtrack, and the sense of anarchy that is prominent in teen dramas. So things like Kidulthood and A Clockwork Orange. Quite honestly, the anarchy, that theme of anarchy, rather than do it through shots or costume directly, we wanted to do it a bit more subtly and in a nuanced way through the soundtrack. Um, that's something that we wanted to get across, was the anarchy with the use of props, Ramadan scenes, so the alcohol, drugs, the symbolic nature of that. Even the sense of having a camera in the back of a car to get this shot was a bit anarchical, not in a direct way, but still a bit. We saw right after this shot, two girls walk out over there in an that represented sexuality. They seemed like they were a couple, or that's the presentation we wanted to give at least. I don't know if we succeeded. That shows again the anarchy, because it's even in today's society, it's not considered normal in inverted commas uh, to be homosexual, or I say normal, it's not the standard between people and could be seen as an act of anarchy. Again, people, the characters all they are not smiling rather than smiling, seem like they really taken drugs, had a lot to drink. It's that whole theme of anarchy that is prevalent in teen dramas that we wanted to get across here. And of course, the themes of sex and drugs, very, very prominent throughout our opening sequence, and I think our soundtrack helps that. And the choice of not having diegetic soundtrack, I think, enhances the conventions also, the forms and conventions, because the R&B, disco music that is popular with our target audience, and the characters that are being portrayed in our opening sequence, I think that shows uh, certain representations of them that are very typical of teen dramas. So if you think of the music that you hear in Kidulthood, it is mainly R&B, rap, so those type of themes that you see throughout teen dramas everywhere, um, that of our nature. And I think we wanted to achieve something very similar to that. I think on the whole, our media product, it does challenge conventions in some ways, but overall I think we wanted to stick to a very stereotypical perception of teen dramas, or at least paint those pictures, maybe manipulate them in a different way. I think the challenging thing that we've done is we've tried to give them a more condemning look rather than something that the audience can empathize with. But the actual perception in terms of the mise en scene and the sound and the editing, they are all very similar to the existing and help portray the existing conventions that are already mentioned, that are already existing. So the fast-paced nature, the messy, the anarchy, etc., etc., etc. So I think our opening sequence mainly uses and develops the conventions and forms of existing opening film title sequences like Kidulthood and the Bling Ring and things like that.